Admiral Kexthul stood in the command center of the Zephyrian Imperial Station, his scaled hands gripping the metal rail as he watched the star charts on the main screen. The station floated at the edge of their territory, a massive structure of dark metal and glowing lights that served as the Empire's first line of defense. For 20 years, nothing had challenged their borders. Nothing had dared. The alarm sounded suddenly, sharp and loud in the quiet command center. Red lights flashed across the control panels as officers rushed to their stations. Commander Veltar, the station's second in command, ran to the Admiral's side with a datapad in her clawed hands. "Sir, we have an unknown contact," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Patrol Ship 7 reports a vessel that appeared on their sensors 12 minutes ago." Admiral Kexthul turned his yellow eyes toward the main screen. "Show me." The display changed to show the outer rim of their space. A small dot blinked on the edge of the sensor range. The numbers scrolled rapidly beside it, showing size, speed, and energy readings that made no sense. "What type of ship is it?" the Admiral asked. "Unknown, sir. The computer cannot identify it. The design matches nothing in our database." Admiral Kexthul studied the readings. The ship was small, maybe half the size of their patrol vessels, but the energy signature was strange. It showed power levels. That should have been impossible for something that size. Where did it come from? "That's the problem, sir. It just appeared. One moment the sensor showed empty space, the next moment it was there. No jump signature, no engine trail. It just materialized." The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. Their sensors were the best in the galaxy. Nothing could hide from them, and nothing could move without leaving some kind of trace. Yet this ship had done exactly that. "Send 3 interceptors to investigate," he ordered. "Tell them to approach slowly and keep their weapons ready." On the screen they watched as 3 Zephyrian fighter ships moved toward the unknown vessel. The fighters were fast and deadly, equipped with the Empire's most advanced weapons. They had never met anything they could not handle. "Captain Jake?" Morrison sat in the pilot's seat of the human ship Wanderer, looking at the console in front of him. The experimental drive had worked perfectly, but it had also taken him much further than planned. According to the navigation computer, he was somewhere near the outer edge of the galaxy, far from any known human territory. "Well, that's not good," he said to himself, running a hand through his brown hair. He was alone on the ship, testing the new drive system for the Terran Deep Space Division. The mission was supposed to be simple: jump to an empty sector, test the drive, and return home. Instead, he found himself in unknown space with 3 alien ships heading straight for him. Jake watched the approaching vessels on his screen. They were sleek and dangerous looking, clearly military ships. Their design was unlike anything in the human database, which meant he had stumbled into territory belonging to a species humanity had never encountered. "Sorry folks, wrong neighborhood," he said into his radio, broadcasting on standard frequencies. "We'll be on our way." He started the process of charging the drive for another jump, but the system needed a few minutes to cycle. The alien ships were getting closer, moving in a standard intercept pattern that Jake recognized from his time in the Terran Navy. Admiral Kexthul listened to the transmission in amazement. The voice was calm and casual, speaking in a language the computer quickly translated. The being called itself human and seemed completely unconcerned about facing 3 Imperial interceptors. "Human," the Admiral repeated the word. "Computer, search all records for any reference to this species." "Searching," the computer replied in its mechanical voice. "Limited references found, mostly from traders and explorers. Reports vary widely and contain many inconsistencies. Species status, unknown." On the screen, the interceptors reached scanning range of the human ship. Immediately, warning signals flashed across the command center displays. "Sir," Commander Veltar called out, her voice filled with alarm. "The interceptors report their shields are being penetrated. The human ship is scanning them with technology we cannot block." Admiral Kexthul watched in growing concern as the human vessel somehow looked right through their most advanced defenses. The scan was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was not aggressive or forceful. Instead, it seemed gentle and thorough, as if the human ship was casually examining everything about their technology. The scan lasted only seconds, but in that time Admiral Kexthul realized the human ship had learned everything about their weapons, shields, and engines. The casual ease with which it penetrated their defenses was more frightening than any attack could have been. "Interceptor Leader, report," the Admiral commanded. "Sir, the human ship has completed its scan. It's not taking any hostile action. It appears to be preparing for departure." On the screen they could see energy building around the human vessel, but it was not the familiar glow of any drive system they knew. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the ship, as if reality was being folded like paper. Jake Morrison finished the jump calculations and activated the drive. The Wanderer slipped out of normal space as easily as stepping through a doorway. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving no trace except the memory of its impossible presence. Admiral Kexthul stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. In 17 minutes, everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had changed. The human vessel had appeared without warning, casually scanned their most advanced ships, and then vanished as if it had never existed. The silence in the command center stretched on as everyone tried to understand what they had witnessed. Finally, Commander Veltar spoke in a whisper. "Sir, what do we do now?" Admiral Kexthul continued staring at the screen, his mind racing with terrible possibilities. If this was just one human ship, operating alone and apparently on a routine mission, what did that say about the rest of their species? What kind of civilization could build technology that made the Zephyrian Empire's greatest achievements look primitive? "Seal all records of this encounter," he said finally, "and send a message to the High Command. Tell them we need an emergency meeting. Tell them everything has changed." As the command center returned to its normal operations, Admiral Kexthul remained at his post, staring into the empty space where the human ship had appeared and vanished. He had served the Empire for 40 years, had seen the conquest of a dozen worlds, had witnessed the surrender of countless enemies, but never had he felt as small and helpless as he did at this moment. The human ship was gone, but its brief presence had left something behind. The terrifying knowledge that the Zephyrian Empire was no longer the greatest power in the galaxy. They never had been. Admiral Kexthul paced back and forth in his private office, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. 3 days had passed since the human ship vanished, and he had not slept once. The emergency meeting with the High Command was scheduled for tomorrow, but first he needed answers. Real answers about what they had encountered. Commander Veltar entered the office carrying a stack of data crystals. Her usually calm face showed signs of exhaustion. She had been working non-stop since the incident, analyzing every piece of information their sensors had gathered during those 17 minutes. "What did you find?" Admiral Kexthul asked, stopping his pacing to face her. "Sir, the analysis is complete, but you are not going to like what I discovered." She placed the crystals on his desk and activated the holographic display. "The human ship's technology operates on principles we do not understand." The display showed a three-dimensional model of the human vessel, rotating slowly in the blue light. It looked simple enough, with smooth curves and no visible weapons, but the energy readings told a different story. "Look at these power signatures," Commander Veltar said, pointing to streams of data flowing around the ship model. "The vessel generates energy by manipulating space itself. It does not burn fuel or use fusion reactors like our ships. It literally bends reality to create power." Admiral Kexthul studied the readings. The numbers were so high they seemed impossible. "How much energy are we talking about?" "Enough to destroy our entire fleet with a single pulse." "But sir, that is not the worst part." She changed the display to show the scan the human ship had performed on their interceptors. In the 4 seconds it took to scan our ships, it downloaded every piece of technical data they contained. Our weapon systems, shield generators, engine designs, even our navigation charts. Everything. The Admiral felt his blood turn cold. "Everything?" "Everything, sir. But more than that, it analyzed the data instantly and determined the exact capabilities of our entire military. The scan was not just gathering information. It was evaluating whether we posed any threat." "And what did it conclude?" Commander. Veltar hesitated before answering. Based on the scan pattern, sir, I believe it concluded that we are harmless. The human ship treated us the same way we might treat a nest of insects. Interesting enough to look at, but not worth worrying about. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the comfortable chair of the debriefing room at Terran Deep Space Command. Commander Lisa Park sat across from him, reading through his mission report on a tablet. The room was simple and clean, with white walls and soft lighting that made everything feel calm and routine. So the experimental drive worked perfectly? Commander Park asked, not looking up from the tablet. Better than expected, Jake replied, taking a sip of his coffee. The jump was clean and precise, no system strain, no navigation errors. I ended up exactly where the computer calculated, just a bit further than we planned. And you encountered some locals? Jake shrugged. 3 ships approached me while I was charging up for the return jump. Seemed curious about the Wanderer. I ran a standard first contact scan and broadcasted a friendly message before leaving. Commander Park made a note on her tablet. Any signs of hostile intent? None at all. They approached slowly and kept their distance. Very professional behavior. Their technology looked decent for a developing civilization. Fusion-based power. Systems, basic force fields, kinetic weapons. Nothing too advanced, but solid engineering. Did you log their location for follow-up contact? Of course. Lieutenant Ben Davis can handle the paperwork for the Cultural Exchange Department. Standard first contact protocols. Commander Park nodded and closed the tablet. Good work, Jake. Take a few days off, then report to Base 7. We have another test mission scheduled for next week. Jake stood up and stretched. Any idea where to this time? The Andromeda approach. We want to test the drive at maximum range. Sounds interesting. Maybe I'll find some locals with better conversation skills than those lizard folks. After Jake left, Commander Park filed his report in the standard database and sent a copy to the Cultural Exchange Department. The encounter was classified as a routine first contact with a Class C civilization. Nothing unusual or noteworthy. Back. On the Zephyrian station, Admiral Kexthal stood before a holographic conference table surrounded by the ghostly images of the Empire's highest military leaders. Emperor Zarhul himself was present, his golden scales gleaming even through the poor quality of the long-range transmission. Explain to me again how one ship has caused this level of concern, the Emperor said, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. Admiral Kexthal activated the display showing the human vessel. Your Majesty, this was not just any ship. The technology it displayed is beyond anything we have encountered. Our scientists believe it operates on principles that would require us centuries to understand. General Mordak, the Empire's military commander, leaned forward in his chair. One ship, Admiral. Surely our fleet of 10,000 vessels could handle one enemy ship no matter how advanced. That is just it, sir. I do not believe it was an enemy ship. The human made no threats, took no aggressive action. It simply observed us and left. But in those few minutes, it gathered enough information to understand our entire military capability. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Commander Veltar stepped forward and activated a new display. Your Majesty, the scan the human ship performed was unlike anything we have seen. It penetrated our shields as if they were not there, analyzed our technology instantly, and then dismissed us as irrelevant. Dismissed us? General Mordak's voice rose in anger. The Zephyrian Empire does not get dismissed by anyone. Sir, with respect, I believe we just were. Admiral Kexthal changed the display to show the human ship's departure. Watch how it leaves. No strain on the engines, no preparation time, no navigation calculations. It simply decides to go and vanishes. Space itself bends around the ship like it is nothing more than a tool. The assembled leaders watched in silence as the human vessel disappeared from the sensor readings. The casual ease of the departure was more intimidating than any weapon could have been. What do our archives say about these humans? The Emperor asked. Very little, Your Majesty. A few scattered reports from traders and explorers, but most of them were dismissed as fantasies. Stories about a species that could manipulate the laws of physics, but we assumed they were exaggerated tales. And now? Admiral Kexthul looked directly at the Emperor's image. Now I believe those stories were not exaggerated enough. If this was just one of their exploration ships, operating alone and apparently on a routine mission, what does that tell us about their civilization? The conference room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, the Emperor spoke in a quiet voice that carried more weight than any shout. Find out everything you can about these humans. Use every resource we have. I want to know what we are dealing with. Admiral Kexthul bowed his head. Yes, Your Majesty. As the conference ended and the holographic images faded away, Admiral Kexthul remained standing in the empty room. He understood now that the appearance of the human ship had changed everything. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled this part of the galaxy for 300 years, had just learned that they were children playing with toys while giants walked among the stars. The investigation was just beginning, but Admiral Kexthul already feared what they might discover. The human ship had appeared and vanished, leaving behind only questions that might be too dangerous to answer. Emperor Zarhul sat on his massive throne in the heart of the imperial palace, his golden scales reflecting the light from 1,000 crystal lamps. Before him stood the greatest minds of the Zephyrian Empire, admirals, scientists, spies, and generals. They had been gathered from across 17 star systems to address the single most important question in the Empire's history. What were the humans? Report, the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing through the vast throne room. Admiral Kexthul stepped forward, holding a data crystal that contained weeks of investigation. Your Majesty, what we have discovered is more disturbing than we feared. The humans are not just advanced. They appear to treat the fundamental laws of physics as suggestions rather than rules. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. Explain. Our spies have gathered intelligence from across the galaxy. 3 weeks ago, a human survey team was spotted in the Rigel sector, led by someone called Dr. Amy Stone. They were mapping gravitational anomalies around black holes. Not from a safe distance, Your Majesty. They were flying through the accretion disks, as if they were empty space. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled leaders. Flying near a black hole was suicide. Flying through one was impossible. Chief Scientist Raul then spoke up from the crowd. Your Majesty, our calculations show that any ship attempting such a maneuver would be torn apart by tidal forces. The radiation alone would melt any known material. Yet the humans did it. Admiral Kexthul continued. Our informants report, they treated the black holes like interesting rocks to be studied. Dr. Stone's team completed their survey in 2 days and moved on to the next system. The Emperor's claws clicked against the armrests of his throne. What else? A human trader named Captain Sam Clark was seen in the outer rim markets. He was selling what he called basic tools to primitive civilizations. Admiral Kexthul activated his data crystal, showing a holographic display. One of these tools was a small device that could restructure matter at the molecular level. He sold it for a bag of local fruit. The silence in the throne room was deafening. Molecular restructuring. Technology was something the Empire's scientists had been trying to develop for 50 years. The humans were trading it for fruit. The trader's ship was also examined from a distance. Admiral Kexthul continued. It appears to be a cargo vessel, not a military craft. Yet it showed the same impossible energy readings as the ship we encountered. Space-time manipulation technology seems to be standard equipment for them. General Mordak, the Empire's supreme military commander, stood up from his position. Your Majesty, surely there must be limits to their capabilities. No species can be that advanced. That is what we thought, Admiral Kexthul replied. But every piece of evidence points to the same conclusion. The humans have mastered technologies that we cannot even understand. They manipulate gravity, time, and space as easily as we use simple tools. Emperor Zarhul stood up from his throne, his massive form casting a shadow over the assembly. How many of them are there? Unknown, Your Majesty. Our intelligence suggests they control a significant portion of space, but they seem to have little interest in conquest. Most of the humans we have identified appear to be scientists, traders, or explorers. They treat the galaxy as their personal laboratory. And their military? Admiral Kexthul hesitated before answering. We have found no evidence of a human military in the traditional sense. They do not appear to need one. The implications of this statement hung in the air like a poison cloud. An entire species so advanced that they did not need armies or weapons because nothing in the galaxy could threaten them. Chief Intelligence Officer Sekvar stepped forward. Your Majesty, we have also discovered something else. The humans we have observed seem completely unaware of the effect they have on other species. They interact with primitive civilizations as if they were all equals, showing no signs of superiority or condescension. What do you mean? Captain Sam Clark, the trader, spent 3 days teaching a group of Bronze Age aliens how to use a gravity manipulator. He seemed genuinely pleased when they figured it out. Dr. Amy Stone's team shared their scientific data freely with anyone who asked. They do not see themselves as gods or conquerors. They simply exist on a level so far above us that our greatest achievements are like children's toys to them. Emperor Zarhul began pacing behind his throne, his mind racing with the terrifying possibilities. Are you telling me that the encounter with their ship was not a first contact situation for them? No, Your Majesty. Based on our analysis, they have been aware of galactic civilization for some time. They simply do not consider us important enough to make formal contact with. We are too primitive to be interesting. The Emperor stopped pacing and turned to face his assembled leaders. Do they know about our empire? Admiral Kexthul consulted his data crystal. There are scattered references to us in trading reports and survey data, but we are classified as a developing civilization in their databases. They know we exist, but they see us the same way we might see a particularly large ant colony. General Mordak's face flushed with anger. Your Majesty, surely we cannot accept this. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this sector for 3 centuries. We have conquered dozens of worlds, defeated countless enemies. We are not insects. To them, we are. Admiral Kexthul said quietly. Our most advanced battleships are powered by fusion reactors. They manipulate space-time itself. Our fastest vessels travel at light speed. They appear to move instantly across vast distances. Our shields can stop energy weapons. Their casual scans penetrate our defenses like they are not there. The Emperor sat back down on his throne, suddenly looking older than his 200 years. What do our war games show? General Mordak cleared his throat uncomfortably. Your Majesty, we have run simulations based on the observed capabilities of the single human ship. The results are not encouraging. Show me. The holographic display changed to show a tactical simulation. The Zephyrian fleet, 10,000 strong, faced a single human vessel identical to the one Admiral Kexthul had encountered. The simulation assumes the human ship is armed with weapons that operate on the same principles as their other technology, General Mordak explained. Given their ability to manipulate space-time, they could theoretically create gravitational weapons, temporal distortions, or simply compress space around our ships. The simulation played out in seconds. The human ship appeared in the center of the Zephyrian fleet, and space itself seemed to fold inward. Every Imperial vessel was crushed instantly, compressed into tiny points of matter that winked out of existence. How long did our fleet survive? The Emperor asked. 2.3 seconds, Your Majesty. The throne room fell into absolute silence. The greatest military force in known space, 3 centuries in the building, could be destroyed in less than 3 seconds by a single human exploration vessel, and this assumes they would need to fight us at all, Admiral Kexthul added. They could simply move our planets to different locations or change the flow of time around our systems. They could make our star go supernova or create a black hole in our home system. The possibilities are limitless because they control the fundamental forces of the universe. Emperor Zarhul stood up again, his decision made. Order the immediate cessation of all military expansion. Redirect all resources to scientific research. Cancel all attack plans against neighboring systems. Your Majesty, General Mordak looked confused. "We are no longer conquerors, General. We are students. From this moment forward, the Zephyrian Empire's only goal is to advance our technology and our understanding of the universe. Perhaps, in a few thousand years, we will be advanced enough that the humans might consider us worth talking to." The Emperor looked out over his assembled leaders, seeing the fear and confusion in their faces. "The age of the Zephyrian Empire as a galactic power is over. We never truly held that power. We only thought we did because we had never met anyone who showed us how small we really are." As the assembly dispersed to carry out their new orders, Emperor Zarhul remained on his throne, staring at the holographic display that still showed the remains of his fleet. One human ship appearing and vanishing in 17 minutes had ended 3 centuries of imperial expansion and changed the course of an entire civilization. The humans had never fired a shot, never made a threat, never even acknowledged the Zephyrian Empire as worthy of their attention. Yet they had achieved what no enemy had ever managed. They had made the Empire realize that it was not the greatest power in the galaxy. It never had been. 6 months had passed since the human ship vanished from Zephyrian space, and the Empire had transformed beyond recognition. Military academies had been converted into research centers. Weapons factories now produced scientific instruments. The greatest generals in imperial history spent their days studying physics textbooks like eager students. Admiral Kexthul stood in what had once been the Empire's primary war room, now converted into a massive laboratory. Banks of computers hummed quietly as they processed data gathered from across the galaxy. Chief Scientist Ral then approached him with yet another report, her expression grave. "Admiral, we have completed our analysis of the human communication networks," she said, holding a data crystal. "What we discovered is worse than anything we imagined." Admiral Kexthul took the crystal and inserted it into the central display. Streams of translated human communications appeared in the air before them. Casual conversations between humans scattered across dozens of star systems. "Look at this message," Rawl then said, highlighting one particular transmission. "A human, scientist named Dr. Ryan Fox is discussing the creation of a new star system. He mentions it the same way we might discuss planting a garden." Admiral Kexthul read the translation aloud. "Hey Lisa, finished the stellar engineering project in Sector 7, 3 new stars, 2 with habitable planets. Should make for some interesting biology experiments. Want to grab coffee when I get back?" The casual tone was more terrifying than any battle cry. These beings were creating star systems for fun, treating the construction of suns and planets as weekend projects. "Here is another one," Ral then continued, showing a different message. A trader complaining about a delayed shipment because he had to navigate around a time distortion. Admiral Kexthul read the message. "Sorry about the delay, folks. Had to take the long route around that temporal anomaly near Vega. Added 3 days to the trip, but the cargo is intact. Should be there Tuesday. Time distortions. Temporal anomalies. These humans spoke about manipulating time itself, the way Imperial pilots talked about avoiding asteroid fields. And this is the worst one," Ralden said, her voice barely above a whisper. She highlighted a message that made Admiral Kexthul's blood run cold. "Jake, heard about your little detour last week. Run into any interesting locals? I'm working on a survey of developing civilizations in that sector. Mostly primitive stuff, but some of them are kind of cute. The lizard people have a nice little empire going. Very organized for their tech level." Admiral Kexthul stared at the message. The human called Jake was obviously the pilot who had encountered their ships. To him, the meeting had been so routine that it barely registered as conversation. The Zephyrian Empire, with all its power and glory, was described as kind of cute. "They know about us?" he said finally. "They have always known about us," Ral then replied. "We are in their databases, Admiral, listed under developing civilizations with a note that we are technologically primitive but show promise." On Earth, Director Carol White sat in her comfortable office at the Department of Galactic Affairs, reviewing the quarterly report on contact with developing civilizations. The report was thick with data from hundreds of worlds, most of which barely registered on her attention scale. She paused at one entry about a reptilian species in the outer arm of the galaxy. The Zephyrians, according to the report, had recently shifted their entire civilization from military expansion to scientific research. It was an interesting development that suggested they were beginning to mature as a species. Probably made contact with some of our people, she said to herself, making a note to commend whoever had inspired the change. It was always nice when primitive species decided to pursue knowledge instead of warfare. Her secretary knocked on the door and entered with a cup of tea. "Director White, you have a call from Captain Morrison. He's requesting permission to extend his next mission." "What's the reason?" "He says the locals in that sector are more interesting than he initially thought. He wants to observe them for a few more days." Director White nodded. "Approved. It's good to see our explorers taking an interest in the developing civilizations." Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Zarhul met with his transformed council in what had once been their military planning chamber. The walls that had displayed battle maps now showed star charts marking human territories and movements. "Report on our progress," the Emperor commanded. Chief Scientist Rahl then stood and activated the main display. "Your Majesty, we have made significant advances in our understanding of basic physics, but we are still centuries away from even beginning to comprehend human technology." Explain. "We have discovered that humans manipulate what they call quantum foam, the fundamental structure of space-time itself. This requires not just advanced technology, but a complete understanding of reality at levels we cannot even imagine." The ER display showed complex equations that hurt to look at. "Our greatest mathematicians have been working on these formulas for months. We believe we understand perhaps 1% of the basic principles." Emperor Zarhul studied the equations. "How long until we achieve their level of technology?" "At our current rate of progress, Your Majesty, approximately 3,000 years. And that assumes we do not encounter any major obstacles." The Emperor absorbed this information in silence. 3,000 years to reach the level of technology that humans treated as routine. 3,000 years to be worthy of their attention. "There is something else, Your Majesty," Rahl then continued. "We have intercepted more human communications. They refer to our recent changes as the Zephyrian Renaissance and seem pleased with our progress." "They are watching us?" "They have always been watching us, Your Majesty. We are what they call a monitored species. They keep track of developing civilizations to ensure we do not become a threat to ourselves or others." The Emperor's claws clicked against his throne. "They monitor us the way we might monitor children playing with dangerous toys. They are not concerned about us harming them. They are concerned about us harming ourselves." Admiral Kexthal stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we have also discovered that several other major galactic powers have recently made similar changes to their civilizations. The Crystalline Confederacy has abandoned their expansion plans. The Hive Collective has redirected all resources to scientific research. They have encountered humans as well?" "Yes, Your Majesty. It appears that humans have been quietly observing the entire galaxy for some time. Every major civilization has had some form of contact, usually brief and seemingly insignificant, but the effect has been the same everywhere." Emperor Zarhul stood and walked to the window looking out at the city below. Construction had begun on dozens of new research facilities, while the military barracks stood empty and quiet. "We are not alone in this realization," he said. "No, Your Majesty. The entire galaxy is changing. Warfare between major powers has virtually ceased. Everyone is focused on advancement and research." "Because they all learned the same lesson we did?" "Yes, Your Majesty, that we are children playing with toys while gods walk among the stars." The Emperor continued staring out the window. "And the humans?" "They continue their work, apparently unaware of the effect they have had on galactic civilization. To them, we are simply developing species that show promise. They seem genuinely pleased that we have chosen to pursue knowledge instead of conquest." Emperor Zarhul turned back to his council. "Then we will not disappoint them. Continue the research. Expand the educational programs. transform every aspect of our civilization toward learning and advancement. Yes, Your Majesty. As the meeting ended and the council dispersed, Emperor Zarhul remained at the window, watching his people rebuild their world. The appearance of one human ship had destroyed the Zephyrian Empire as it had existed for 3 centuries. But in its place, something new was growing. Something that might, in a few thousand years, be worthy of humanity's attention. The revelation was complete. The Zephyrian Empire had never been a galactic power. They had been students who did not know they were in school, children who thought their toys were weapons. Now, for the first time in their history, they had a chance to truly grow. All because a human exploration vessel had appeared for 17 minutes and casually dismissed them as harmless. 2 years had passed since the human ship appeared and vanished from Zephyrian space. The galaxy had become a completely different place, though the humans who had caused this transformation remained blissfully unaware of their impact. Emperor Zarhul stood in the grand hall of the new Imperial Academy, watching thousands of young Zephyrians study advanced mathematics and physics. Where once military parades had marched, now eager students carried books and data tablets. The sight filled him with a pride he had never felt during the Empire's conquering days. Ambassador Krelnoth approached the Emperor with news from across the galaxy. Your Majesty, the Galactic Council meeting has been scheduled. Representatives from 47 civilizations will attend. All former military powers? The Emperor asked. Yes, Your Majesty. The Crystalline Confederacy, the Hive, Collective, the Iron Dominion, even the warlike Talon Federation. Every major civilization that has encountered the humans has requested membership. Emperor Zarhul nodded. The Galactic Council was something new, born from the shared realization that all of their species were students in a classroom they had not known existed. Instead of competing for territory and resources, they now shared knowledge and research, hoping that together they might advance faster than any could alone. What about the minor civilizations? They are being invited to join, as well. The humans seem to monitor all developing species equally, regardless of their current technology level. The Bronze Age Kalari from the Rim systems will have the same voting rights as us. The Emperor smiled at this. In the old days, the idea of giving primitive aliens equal status would have been insulting. Now he understood that from the human perspective, the difference between a Bronze Age civilization and the mighty Zephyrian Empire was meaningless. They were all children learning to walk. Captain Jake Morrison stepped out of the Wanderer onto the docking platform of Terra Station, completing another successful test mission. The experimental drive had performed perfectly again, allowing him to map 3 new star systems in the Andromeda approach vectors. Lieutenant Ben Davis met him at the airlock with a clipboard and a grin. How did it go, Jake? Smooth as silk. The drive is ready for full deployment. Jake stretched his arms after the long journey. Ran into some locals again, though. Same group of lizard folks from last time, plus some new species. They seemed really excited to see me for some reason. Excited how? Hard to explain. They were broadcasting on every frequency they had, trying to get my attention. Very polite about it, though. Invited me to some kind of big meeting they were having. Ben made notes on his clipboard. Did you accept? Jake shrugged. Told them I'd pass the information along to the cultural exchange people. Seemed like a job for the diplomats, not a test pilot. Probably wise. You know how complicated first contact situations can get. They walked together toward the debriefing rooms, passing through the busy corridors of the space station. Around them, hundreds of humans went about their daily business, unaware that their casual existence was reshaping galactic civilization. Dr. Amy Stone floated in her laboratory ship near the Andromeda Galaxy, studying the formation of new stellar nurseries. Her work on gravitational physics had led to breakthroughs in understanding how galaxies evolved, but she was more interested in the pure science than any practical applications. Her assistant, Dr. Kevin Ross, approached with data from their latest experiment. Amy, we're getting some interesting readings from that civilization monitoring project. Which one? The Developing Species Survey. 47 different civilizations have formed some kind of alliance in the past 2 years. They're calling At the Galactic Council for Scientific Advancement. Amy looked up from her gravitational sensors. That's unusual. Most primitive species focus on territory and resources when they first make contact with each other. These seem to be focused entirely on research and education. They've pooled their knowledge and are working together on advanced physics projects. Good for them. Maybe they'll figure out quantum manipulation in a few centuries. Amy returned to her work, dismissing the news as mildly interesting but not particularly important. Back in the galaxy, the first official meeting of the Galactic Council convened on a neutral world in the Zephyrian sector. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all united by their shared humility in the face of human technological supremacy. Emperor Zarhul, elected as the first council president, stood before the assembly. Fellow species, we gather here not as conquerors or enemies, but as students united in our quest for knowledge and advancement. The assembled delegates listened intently. Crystalline beings that had once enslaved entire worlds sat beside former enemies who had fought them for centuries. Hive minds that had consumed planets now worked peacefully with species they had once viewed as food. 2 years ago, each of our civilizations believed we were the masters of our own destiny. The Emperor continued. We have learned that we are pupils in a school we did not know existed, taught by teachers who view us with the kind benevolence that we might show to clever children. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. Every species present had experienced the same humbling revelation. But this is not a cause for despair, it is an opportunity. For the first time in galactic history, we can learn together, grow together, and perhaps someday earn the respect of our teachers. High Counselor Vextar of the Crystalline Confederacy stood to speak. President Zarhul speaks truly. My people spent 3,000 years perfecting weapons of crystalline light. We believed ourselves invincible. Then a human trader showed one of our younglings how to reshape matter with a device he called a simple tool. Our greatest weapons became toys in comparison. Similar stories were shared by representatives from every civilization. The pattern was always the same. Brief, casual contact with humans who demonstrated technology so advanced that it seemed like magic, followed by the devastating realization of their own primitive status. What do we do now? Asked General Thrak of the Talon Federation, a species that had built their entire culture around warfare. Emperor Zarhul smiled. We learn, we study, we grow, and perhaps most importantly, we help each other become worthy of the galaxy we thought we ruled. The Council voted unanimously to establish shared research facilities, educational exchanges, and joint scientific projects. Military budgets across the galaxy were redirected to schools and laboratories. Weapons of war became tools of discovery. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his favorite cafe on Earth, reading through his mission reports over a cup of coffee. His friend Dr. Ryan Fox joined him at the small table, carrying his own cup and a tablet, full of stellar engineering data. How's the new drive working out? Ryan asked, settling into his chair. Perfectly. I can reach the edge of Andromeda now without any strain on the systems. Jake took a sip of his coffee. Keep running into the same group of locals, though. They seem to be having some kind of renaissance. Renaissance? Yeah, they've stopped fighting each other and started focusing on science and education. It's actually pretty impressive for their tech level. Ryan nodded approvingly. Always nice to see developing species choose knowledge over warfare. Shows they're maturing. The weird part is they keep trying to thank me for something I have no idea what they think I did. Probably just grateful for the contact. Primitive species sometimes get excited about meeting more advanced civilizations. Jake laughed. If they think we're advanced, they should see what the guys in the Temporal Research Division are working on. Dr. Wilson showed me plans for a machine that can reset an entire timeline. Now that would be something, Ryan agreed. Though I still prefer the simplicity of stellar engineering. There's something satisfying about building a star system from scratch. Around them, other humans continued their casual conversations about technologies that would seem godlike to the 47 civilizations now united in the Galactic Council. They spoke of creating stars the way others might discuss gardening, and manipulating time as if it were a simple resource to be managed. The galaxy had been transformed by the appearance and disappearance of one human ship, but humanity remained focused on their own interests and pursuits. To them, the developing civilizations were simply part of the background noise of a universe full of wonders to explore and understand. Emperor Zarhul stood on the observation deck of the new council headquarters, looking out at the stars. In Idardia, the distance, construction crews were building the galaxy's first joint research station, where dozens of species would work together toward a common goal. The unknown ship had appeared and vanished in 17 minutes, but its impact would last. For millennia, the Empire had never stood a chance, not because of any weapon or threat, but because it had encountered something so far beyond its understanding that the very knowledge of humanity's existence had changed everything. The galaxy was no longer a place of conquest and war. It had become a classroom, and for the first time in their history, its inhabitants were ready to learn. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm bells started ringing. He put down his mug and looked at the main screen of the USS Liberty. 300 shiny ships had just appeared near Earth. They looked like giant diamonds floating in space. "Sir, we're getting a message," said Lieutenant Lisa Parker. She was trying not to smile, but Jake could see she was having trouble keeping a straight face. "Put it through," Jake said. The screen filled with the image of a tall alien creature. It had 4 arms, purple skin, and wore fancy golden robes. Its voice was deep and formal. "Greetings, primitive bipeds of the third planet. We are the Galactic Hegemony, rulers of 47 star systems. You will now submit to our benevolent rule and join our glorious empire." Jake blinked. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Commander Rick Davis was raising his eyebrows. Lieutenant Parker was biting her lip to keep from laughing. Even the serious chief engineer, Bob Wilson, was shaking his head with a grin. Thanks for the offer," Jake said into the microphone. "But we're good." The alien's 4 eyes widened. "What do you mean you are good?" "I mean, thanks, but no thanks. We're doing fine on our own." There was a long pause. The alien seemed to be talking to someone off-screen. Then it turned back to Jake. "I am Admiral Zexthal of the Hegemony. Perhaps you do not understand. We are offering you the chance to join our great empire. You will receive our protection and guidance." "That's very nice of you," Jake replied. "But like I said, we're good. We can protect ourselves." Admiral Zexthal's purple face was starting to turn a darker shade. "In 800 years of conquest, no species has ever refused our generous offer." "Well, there's a first time for everything," Jake said cheerfully. The alien began speaking faster. "You do not comprehend the benefits of Imperial membership. We offer advanced technology, interstellar trade, and the wisdom of our ancient civilization." Jake scratched his head. "Look, Admiral, I'm sure your empire is great and all, but we humans have this thing called independence. We're pretty fond of it." "Independence?" The alien said the word like it tasted bad. "You cannot survive alone in the galaxy. There are dangers you cannot imagine." "We've been doing okay so far," Commander Davis said, joining the conversation. "We've got wars, diseases, natural disasters, and politicians. If we can handle politicians, we can probably handle whatever else is out there." The bridge crew chuckled. Admiral Zexthal looked confused. "You make jokes in the face of galactic domination?" the alien asked. "We make jokes about everything," Lisa Parker said. "It's kind of our thing." Admiral Zexthal's face was now almost black with anger. "Perhaps you need a demonstration of our power. We possess weapons that can destroy entire worlds." Jake leaned back in his chair. "That's not very nice. We've got weapons too, you know. Ever heard of nuclear bombs?" "Nuclear weapons are primitive. Technology," the alien scoffed. "Maybe, but we've got a lot of them. And we have this concept called mutually assured destruction. Basically, if you blow us up, we blow you up too. Nobody wins." The alien stared at Jake for a long moment. "You would destroy yourselves rather than submit?" "We'd prefer not to destroy anybody," Jake said. "But we're not big on the whole submission thing. Bad experiences with that in the past." Admiral Zexthal was clearly struggling to understand. "But But we are offering you paradise, order, structure, purpose. We already have purpose, Jake replied. We're exploring space, making art, falling in love, and trying to figure out how to make pizza taste better in zero gravity. That's purpose enough for us. Pizza? The alien asked. It's food. Round, flat, with cheese and tomato sauce. Sometimes we put other stuff on it. It's pretty good. The alien delegation on the screen started talking among themselves in their own language. It sounded like a bunch of angry cats having an argument. Finally, Admiral Zexthul turned back to the humans. We will give you time to reconsider. But know this, the hegemony always gets what it wants. Sure thing, Jake said. Take all the time you need. We'll be here. The screen went black. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Sir, said Lieutenant Parker, should we be worried? Jake looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. These were good people. They had families back on Earth. They had lives and dreams and hopes for the future. Probably, he said. But worrying never solved anything. Bob, how are our defenses? Chief Engineer Wilson grinned. All systems are green, Captain, and I've got a few tricks those fancy aliens haven't seen yet. Good. Rick, get me a line to Earth Command. They're going to want to know about our new visitors. Already on it, sir, Commander Davis replied. Jake picked up his coffee mug and took a sip. It was cold now, but it still tasted good. He looked out at the alien fleet in the distance. They were beautiful ships, he had to admit, like floating jewels against the black of space. Sir, Lisa Parker said quietly, do you think they'll attack? Jake shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. But if they do, they're going to learn something about humans they probably don't know. What's that, sir? We don't like bullies, and we really don't like being told what to do. The alien fleet began moving away from Earth, settling into a formation, about 1 million kilometers out. Far enough to be safe, close enough to keep an eye on things. Looks like they're going to think about it, Commander Davis observed. Good, Jake said. Gives us time to order pizza for the night shift. I have a feeling this is going to be a long week. As the USS Liberty continued its orbit around Earth, Jake Morrison couldn't help but smile. Somewhere out there, an alien, Admiral, was probably having the worst day of his 800-year career. And it was all because a bunch of humans couldn't stop being themselves. The stars looked the same as they always had. But everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They had neighbors now. Neighbors with big ships and bad attitudes. But they also had something the aliens didn't seem to understand. They had each other. And sometimes that was enough. A week passed without any word from the alien fleet. Then the message came through. We request a formal diplomatic meeting, Admiral Zexthul announced on the main screen of the USS Liberty. We will send our most accomplished cultural expert to negotiate your peaceful integration into our empire. Captain Jake Morrison nodded. Sure thing. Where do you want to meet? We will construct a neutral meeting station. It will be ready in 3 days. Jake looked at Commander Rick Davis, who shrugged. Sounds fair to me, Jake said. 3 days later, the aliens had built what looked like a giant crystal palace floating in space. It was beautiful and impressive, with lights and decorations that sparkled like diamonds. Ships moved around it in perfect formation. The human delegation was much smaller. Secretary of State Mary Collins led the group, along with General Pete Rodriguez and Dr. Amy Watson, a scientist who studied alien life. They traveled in a simple shuttle to the meeting station. When they docked, they were met by hundreds of aliens. There were guards in shiny armor, musicians with strange instruments, and officials carrying fancy banners. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Kretal, who was even taller than Admiral Zexthul and wore robes covered in jewels. Welcome to this historic moment, Ambassador Kretal said in his deep voice. Today marks the beginning of your species' journey into the greater galaxy. Mary Collins smiled politely. Thank you for the invitation. This is quite a setup you have here. The aliens led them through halls decorated with art from dozens of different worlds. Everything was perfect and organized, Not a single thing was out of place. They entered a huge meeting room with a table that could seat 100 people. The aliens had prepared thick books of documents, maps of the galaxy, and what looked like contracts written in gold ink. Ambassador Kretal gestured to a stack of papers. This is our standard integration treaty. It contains 847 pages detailing the terms of your membership in the hegemony. General Rodriguez whistled. That's a lot of paperwork. Indeed. We have sections on tribute payments, loyalty oaths, military service requirements, and cultural adaptation protocols. Mary Collins reached into her bag and pulled out a single piece of paper. She placed it on the giant table. What is this? Ambassador Kretal asked, staring at the small document. Our response, Mary said. The paper had one sentence written on it. Earth passes on your generous offer. Have a nice day. Humanity. The ambassador picked up the paper and read it several times. His advisors gathered around him, talking in whispers. This is not how diplomacy works, Ambassador Kretal said finally. There must be lengthy negotiations, formal ceremonies, gradual integration processes. Why? Dr. Watson asked. She was taking notes and seemed fascinated by everything she saw. Because that is how it has always been done. Dr. Watson nodded. That makes sense for you, but we do things differently. Ambassador Kretal seemed confused. But we have brought gifts, advanced technology to share with your primitive world. What kind of technology? General Rodriguez asked. The aliens proudly began their demonstration. They showed off faster-than-light communication devices that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. They displayed energy shields that could protect entire cities. They presented food machines that could create any meal from basic materials. The humans watched politely and clapped at the right moments. Very impressive, Mary Collins said. Would you like to see some of our technology? Dr. Watson pulled out her phone and showed it to Ambassador Kretal. This is a communication device. I can talk to anyone on Earth instantly. I can also play games, order food, watch movies, read books, and access all of human knowledge. The ambassador stared at the small device. How do you power such advanced technology? I plug it into the wall when the battery gets low, Dr. Watson said cheerfully. The wall? Yeah, we have electricity everywhere. Powers everything. Ambassador Kretal looked at his advisors. They seemed as confused as he was. General Rodriguez pulled out his tablet. We use these for military planning. Real-time battlefield information, satellite imagery, communication with troops anywhere on the planet. But how do you manufacture such devices? One of the alien advisors asked. Factories. We make millions of them. Pretty much everyone has one. The aliens spent several minutes examining the human devices, passing them around and talking in their strange language. This is impossible, Ambassador Kretal said. Such technology requires massive industrial infrastructure and centuries of development. We've had factories for a couple hundred years, Mary Collins said. Started with making cloth, moved on to cars. Now we make everything. Dr. Watson was looking at the alien food machine. How does this work? It rearranges matter at the molecular level to create any desired substance. Ambassador Kretal explained proudly. Cool. We have something similar. Dr. Watson showed them pictures on her phone. These are 3D printers. We can make tools, machine parts, even houses. This one here prints with chocolate. Chocolate? It's food, sweet and delicious. We eat it. For fun. The ambassador was looking more and more frustrated. You speak of doing things for fun. What is the purpose of this? General Rodriguez laughed. Fun is the purpose. Life's too short to be serious all the time. But without purpose, how do you maintain order? We don't need much order, Mary Collins said. People mostly get along fine on their own. Ambassador, Kretal was turning a darker shade of purple. Impossible. Civilization requires structure, rules, authority. We have rules, General Rodriguez said. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, and try to be nice. Works pretty well. Dr. Watson was still fascinated by the alien technology. Can I ask you something? Why do you want to conquer other planets? We do not conquer. We liberate. We bring order to chaos. But what if people are happy with their chaos? Ambassador Cretal stared at her. Happy? What does happiness have to do with governance? The three humans looked at each other. Everything? Mary Collins said. The whole point of government is to help people be happy and free. Free? The Toiui ambassador said the word like it was poison. Freedom leads to disorder, chaos, suffering. Sometimes, General Rodriguez admitted. But it also leads to great things. Art, music, exploration, love. These things serve no function. Dr. Watson smiled. They serve the most important function of all. They make life worth living. The meeting continued for several more hours, but it only got more confusing for both sides. The aliens could not understand why humans would choose uncertainty over security. The humans could not understand why anyone would give up freedom for order. Finally, Ambassador Cretal ended the meeting. We will need time to consider this. Your species is unusual. As the humans prepared to leave, Dr. Watson asked one more question. Can I ask what you do for fun in your empire? Ambassador Cretal looked puzzled. Fun is not necessary. We have purpose. But what makes you happy? The ambassador thought for a long moment. I do not understand the question. As their shuttle flew back toward Earth, the three humans sat in silence for a while. That was sad, Dr. Watson said finally. Yeah, General Rodriguez agreed. 800 years of conquering, and they've never learned how to smile. Mary Collins was looking out at the stars. I think we're about to teach them something they didn't expect to learn. What's that? Dr. Watson asked. That maybe, just maybe, they're the ones who need to be liberated. Admiral Zexthal was angry. The diplomatic meeting had been a disaster. These humans did not understand their place in the galaxy. They needed to see the true power of the hegemony. Prepare the stellar destroyer, he ordered his crew aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion. We will show them what happens to those who refuse our generous offer. The alien fleet moved into position around a small asteroid near Earth. It was about the size of a city block, spinning slowly in space. Admiral Zexthal opened a communication channel to Earth. Humans of the third planet. His voice boomed across space. You have refused our offer of peace. Now you will witness the power that has conquered 47 star systems. Watch and understand your fate if you continue to resist. Captain Jake Morrison was back on the bridge of the USS Liberty. He looked at the alien formation with interest. Looks like they're planning a light show. Sir, should we move to a safer distance? Lieutenant Lisa Parker asked. Nah, we're fine here. Let's see what they can do. The alien ships began to glow. Energy flowed between them like lightning, creating patterns of light that were beautiful to watch. The humans on nearby stations and ships stopped what they were doing to look. This is actually pretty impressive, Commander Rick Davis said, watching the display. The aliens spent almost an hour charging their weapon. Energy built up across multiple ships, creating a web of power that connected the entire fleet. The space around them crackled with electricity. Admiral Zexthal's voice came over the communication system again. Behold the stellar destroyer, the same weapon that reduced the Korthak rebellion to dust, the same force that shattered the defenses of Zarian Prime. He's really proud of this thing, Jake observed. The weapon fired. A beam of pure energy thicker than a building and brighter than the sun struck the asteroid. The rock exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. Pieces flew in all directions like fireworks. The alien fleet sat in formation, waiting for the humans to respond with terror and surrender. Instead, Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication channel, sounding impressed but casual. Hey, that was pretty neat. Want to see something cool? Before Admiral Zexthal could respond, a small human ship appeared near another asteroid. It was a beat-up mining vessel called the Betty Sue, with rust stains and scratched paint. The ship looked like it had been working in space for 20 years. This is Captain Roy Tucker of the Betty Sue, a voice said with a Texas accent. Y'all want to see what we use to clear space junk? The mining ship moved close to the asteroid. There was no big display of power, no charging time, no dramatic music. Roy Tucker just flipped a switch. The asteroid vanished. Not exploded. Not destroyed. It simply disappeared completely as if it had never existed. The alien fleet sat in stunned silence. What? Admiral Zexthul whispered. Captain Morrison's voice came back on the channel. Experimental matter displacement drive. We've been testing it on space debris. Works pretty well for cleaning up our orbital lanes. How is this possible? The Admiral demanded. Oh, it's not that complicated. A new voice joined the conversation. This is Dr. Sarah Kim. I invented the device. It uses quantum field manipulation to displace matter into parallel dimensional space. Basically, we just move things somewhere else. Dr. Kim spoke like she was explaining how to change a flat tire. Her voice was cheerful and excited, the way people sound when they get to talk about their favorite hobby. The tricky part was getting the calculations right, she continued. Took us about 6 months to work out the math. But once we figured out the quantum resonance patterns, it was just a matter of building the right equipment. Admiral Zexthul was having trouble processing what he had just seen. This is a weapon of unimaginable power. Weapon? Dr. Kim sounded confused. It's not a weapon. It's a garbage disposal system. We got tired of space junk cluttering up our satellites. But the military applications, I guess you could use it as a weapon, Dr. Kim said thoughtfully. But that would be kind of wasteful. It's much better for cleaning things up. Captain Roy Tucker's voice came back on the line. Hell, we use smaller versions of these things back home to clear tree stumps. Real handy for construction work. The alien leadership was having an emergency meeting on their flagship. Admiral Zexthul could hear them arguing in the background. You have tree stumps? One of the aliens asked weakly. Sure do. Big old things, hard to dig out with regular equipment. Sarah's machine makes it easy. Just point and click and they're gone. Dr. Kim was getting more excited. We're working on a bigger version for asteroid mining. Should be able to move entire mountains if we get the power requirements right. Mountains? Admiral Zexthul asked. Well, small mountains. Maybe hills. We want to terraform Mars, and it would be easier if we could move some of the rock around. Lieutenant Parker was watching the alien fleet through the Liberty sensors. Sir, I think they're having some kind of breakdown over there. Jake looked at the readings. Several alien ships were moving erratically, and their communication channels were full of panicked chatter. Admiral, Jake said, are you okay over there? There was a long pause before Zexthul answered. How long have you possessed this technology? About 8 months, Dr. Kim replied. We finished the first working prototype last winter, been testing it on space junk ever since. And you use it for garbage disposal? And construction, and mining. Roy's been using it to help build the new Mars colony ships. Mars colony? Captain Morrison chuckled. Oh yeah, we're planning to move about 50,000 people to Mars next year. Should be fun. You are colonizing other worlds? Just the one, for now. Well, we've got some research stations on Europa and Titan, but Mars is the first real colony. The alien fleet was definitely having some kind of crisis. Ships were breaking formation, and their communication channels sounded like a bunch of people having nervous breakdowns. Sir, Commander Davis said quietly, I think we broke them. Seems that way, Jake replied. Dr. Kim, maybe tone down the technical details a bit. I think they're having trouble keeping up. Oh, sorry, Dr. Kim said. I get excited when I talk. About quantum mechanics, most people find it boring. Most people don't have your brain, Captain Tucker laughed. Hell, I still don't understand how that thing works, and I've been using it for months. Admiral Zexthul's voice came back on the communication channel sounding strained. We need to discuss this development with our superiors. The fleet will withdraw to consider these new circumstances. Sure thing, Jake said. Take all the time you need. We'll be here. As the alien fleet began moving away from Earth, the humans watched with amusement. Think they'll be back? Lisa Parker asked. "Oh, they'll be back," Jake said. "But I think next time they might be a little more polite." Dr. Kim was still on the communication channel, talking to Captain Tucker about improvements to the displacement drive. Their casual discussion of moving mountains and reshaping planets was probably giving the aliens nightmares. "You know what the funny part is?" Commander Davis said. "What's that?" "They spent an hour charging up their superweapon to blow up one little asteroid. Roy did the same thing in about 3 seconds, and he was just cleaning up space junk." Jake laughed. "I think they're starting to realize they might have picked the wrong species to mess with." In the distance, the alien fleet was retreating to what they probably thought was a safe distance. But after watching humans casually make asteroids,